Hi everyone, how are yins doing today? I'm Ginger Gerald, or Gerald, here for another Saturday off the grid after party. Today, if you hear some noises in the background, that's my dryer finishing up a load of laundry, so you may hear some of those noises in the background. Anyways, it is, what is December 23rd? 23rd? Yeah, December 23rd. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve. I hope you are all preparing and ready for the holiday season if you celebrate Christmas. I'm fine. I'm slowly getting there. I still have some wrapping to do. Actually, I still have some shopping to do, but those gifts aren't due until, I don't need to have them ready until New Year's when I see family. So today, to get into a little bit more of the festive spirit, I figured we could work on, or at least I could work on, along with you, some Christmas patterns. So I am working on Ornamental Joy by Country Cottage Needle Works, right? Yes, Country Cottage Needle Works. As you can see, since last week when I didn't do so well with my stitching, I have frogged, ripped out the stitches that were wrong, and then I went ahead and did all of the yellow stitches that create the backbone of this border. So now, while I stitch today, we can just go in and add the decorative silver and gray pieces. Again, if you are new to my channel, this is Ornamental Joy by Country Cottage Needleworks. I'm stitching this on a 40 count Red River by xJuDesigns. Yes, this is 40 count, and yes, I do not use magnification when I stitch. I am lucky that I am my eyes are well enough that I do not need magnification at this time. So I'm taking advantage of it and stitching on small stuff as much as I can, because I know that will not last long term. So you can see I'm stitching with a variegated gray, which is called Chalkboard by Color and Cotton Threads, or Color and Cotton. Angela does a great job with her dyeing, and this is one of the threads I got in my subscription from her. Of course, I will try to remember to put all this information in the information section at the bottom if you are interested. So I am going to, I got that one leaf done, so now I'm going to finish off. I have to move the camera so that we can see how I finish off my threads. There we go. And what I do is I just flip it around and I weave it behind some. I try to get at least 4 to 5 so it's nicely secured. There we go. And I knock it off. And as you can see, my back is so-so. I'm not one of those that worries about my back being perfectly clean. I carry my threads. So, and then we're gonna turn it around again. I'm going to slightly move the camera forward so I can get a little bit closer to the project. And we will start the next one. So the way I start my piece is I gather the end of the thread in my fingers. I hold that behind. And I work the stitch. Whoop, that's in the wrong hole. This is the only time I use my dominant hand above when I stitch two-handed. I stitch over that tail and now it is secure. And I can continue on. So this is going to be a busy weekend for me. So this is actually, I'm stitching this on Friday afternoon because I am off from work. Yay! We had our last day of school on Wednesday. Thursday, yesterday, was an in-service day because my school is, we built a brand new school, so we are moving into the brand new school in January, so we had to pack up everything and move. The school I work for has been around for 135 years, so in the same location. We are one of the first special needs schools in American history because back in the 1800s, people with special needs were not really taken care of very well. And our founder started taking students into her home, which is actually still on the old campus. We used it as an office building and started teaching individuals with special needs how to cope in society, teaching them social skills and basic activities for daily living to promote as much independence as possible. And that's been our philosophy ever since. So we finally have built a brand new state-of-the-art facility to be able to meet the needs of our students. And therefore we had to pack, and I hate packing. I'm sure most people do, and it's very hard to pack for a classroom. I mean, not only were we just like closing out for the year, we were actually packing everything up that we thought we needed and purging lots of stuff that was in the classrooms from years and years and years past. So definitely took some time and patience, but we got it done. And now I am off. Let's see. So this weekend I am very busy, but at the same time it's kind of nice that I don't have a whole lot of plans that I have to do for the weekend. I'm actually not going home to see my family until New Year's Eve weekend, because New Year's Eve is my mother's birthday. So and with this move and everything, I do have to go into the school early next week just to try to start setting up my classroom a little bit. So I told my family I would come home for New Year's. So that way I will be able to sing in the church choir for Christmas Eve and just kind of enjoy a nice relaxing Christmas day with my friend. We're going to go to his aunt's house and celebrate with her. I want to thank everyone who continues to watch my videos and leave me great comments about my stitching style, my setup, and the patience that that you all are providing with allowing me leave to set up my stitching and recording in a way that makes it comfortable for me, as well as the best setup so you can see what I do along with great audio, because I wasn't thrilled about some of the audio that I had talked about in the last week. So I also got lots of comments about the fact that in the last time I did a video with this setup, you could actually hear the thread, the floss, being pulled through the fabric, which many people said was very relaxing. And actually I kind of agreed with that when I was listening back. You could really hear at times, some of the thread being pulled through, and it was kind of relaxing, kind of meditative. Okay, so let's... There we go. So in my most recent Vlogmas episode, the second one, I had talked about one of my stories from Korea. And I know in past videos I've gotten many questions about my experiences in Korea. So I thought I would talk a little bit about what it was like for me, how I got my job in Korea teaching English, and what it was like for me living in Korea for a year. So let me just get my thread started and I will tell you that story. You will be surprised, I think, with some of the details. And there we go. I know my hand's in the way there a bit, but put this up just a little bit more so I can see a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so I moved to Korea in October of 2010, the end of October, and I lived there for a year. So I moved back actually just over a year in November of 2011. And at the time, I was having a hard time finding a job. I was in between some minor jobs that had nothing to do with my college degree, and I was really I really wanted to find a job back in education. So, but it had been 3.5 years since I was a teacher. So it was hard finding schools that were willing to accept me. So I was looking, and that was back at the time where Craigslist seemed to still be pretty big. And I just randomly came across this post on Craigslist saying, if as long as you had a college degree, you could teach in Korea. So I'm like, okay, I will send in my resume, not thinking anything of it, not expecting to get a response back or any kind of, anything, not hear from it. But I was willing to take the risk because I needed a job. So I sent in my resume. And it was literally no more than 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from this person saying they received my resume via email and was interested in setting up an interview. I'm like, okay. So I think it was a couple hours later, he called me back for the interview, asked me some very general questions about my teaching experiences, and if I was interested in teaching, gave me a little bit of a background of the expectations of a teacher in Korea, and then wanted to set me up with an interview with the school. So it was like through a broker. So the broker had to find some schools that were interested first before they could, so that they could set up the appointment or the interview. And of course, everything was over the phone because Korea was 12 hours ahead of us. So usually when we're sleeping, they are awake. And so they called, so the broker set up the appointment for the school, and I think it was on a Thursday night at 8:30 at night. I had the interview, and hardly asked me any detailed questions, just basic, like how do you take care of students that are having behaviors, very, very basic, do you like children, that type of stuff. And right away on the phone, they offered me the position. I was kind of taken aback and had to think about it. So I told them I would, take some time, because firstly, I found the job on Craigslist. So I thought about it for a day or two, and then I accepted the position. So typically with that position, you have to pay for your airfare, and then the school that you're working for will reimburse you upon arrival. Well, I didn't have $1,000 to put down on one-way airfare to Korea because, one way there, and then a year later it's one way back. So luckily, I was able to get my school to pay for it up front. So, of course, though, I didn't have I had to apply for all the visa paperwork and everything like that. So this was the end of September that I had the interview. And a month later, I think it was a week and a half or 2 weeks later, I had to go to New York City to interview for my work visa at the Korean consulate. And then a week or so later, I received my visa in the mail and my passport. And then it was the end of October, so October 28th, I was on a plane to Korea. Not knowing anybody in Korea, not knowing how to speak the language, but I went to Korea. And I will say it was probably one of the best experiences of my life to this point, just because it was an unexpected experience, for people to, and I know that this is still an opportunity. So, and many people there, you don't have to have a teaching degree to teach English in Korea. You just have to have a college degree. So many young people right out of undergrad go there to save up money to pay off student loans, because at the time it was much cheaper to live in Korea than it was in the US. Plus, the schools that you work for pay all of your expenses while you're there. All I had to pay for was food, gas and electric, and my internet. And of course, internet is optional. Cell phones were optional, so of course I had a cell phone too, but you didn't have to get one. So all of that was optional. But they paid for your housing. And of course it was fully what's the word I'm trying to think of? Fully furnished. It was a fully furnished apartment, so I didn't have to worry about finding furniture or anything like that. And it was just, but you have to go in having a very basic expectation of living, because living, of course, in Korea is very different than living in the United States. They don't, unlike the US where, bigger is better, that's not the way it was in Korea. So you have to go in with the expectation that, they don't live with all this space. I had a very small studio apartment. It was one room with a kitchen and a bathroom. And it's probably the same size as my bedroom here in my one bedroom apartment in the US. So, and that's where a lot of people, if you read the reviews and everything online, it's a lot of people have negative experiences because they don't go in with an open mind. They go in with high expectations of living exactly the same way you do in the US. Can't find my hole. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So living in Korea, I lived in a small village, it was a half-hour bus ride outside of the outskirts of the second largest city in Korea. The largest city in Korea is Seoul. The second largest is Busan, and it's on the southern coast of South Korea. And I was in a suburb of Busan called Gimhae. And actually, I was not in the center city part of Gimhae. I was in a small town outside of the center city called Jongyu. And Jongyu, was a small village, working village, but their version of small is much different than our version of small in the US. Because my family lives in a town of about 500 people in northwestern Pennsylvania. So to me at least, that's small. But a small village in Korea was 100,000 people. But it was nice. I lived, I don't know, a 10-minute walk from school. So I could walk everywhere. There was a grocery store all within walking distance, so I never had to really ride the bus or anything unless I felt like it. And while I was there, my family did come visit over Easter week in Korea. They flew into Seoul, well, Incheon, and I met them. I took this high-speed line from Busan to Seoul, and I met them there, and then they came down to my end of the country to visit for the other half of the week. And it was a really nice visit because that was the only time I was able to get to Seoul while I was there. So I highly recommend, if any of you watching are interested or have family that are interested in maybe getting that international experience after college, paying off some debt, living freely for a bit, and just experiencing life in other cultures, Korea is definitely a place to consider. Of course, now it's frustrating to see what's going on with North Korea, but while I was there was tensions with North Korea, and I never really heard about them because they just didn't talk. The Koreans just don't really talk about what's happening because they're so used to it. And I will say the thing I miss most about living in Korea is actually, surprisingly, the food. And I say surprisingly because when I lived in Korea, all I miss and wanted was American food. And now that I live in America, all I miss and really want is the Korean food. And there are some Korean restaurants in my area that I live at now, but of course, most of them are Korean barbecue places. And it's not the food that I really, really miss. I will say there was a lot of food while I was in Korea that I did not like, though. Just because I'm not a huge seafood eater, and they eat a lot of seafood that's very different than what we do in America. A lot of fish, octopus, squid. I don't like octopus or squid. But I did try it once just because I was in the experience I wanted to experience everything at least once. That's not right. You probably just heard that little jingle. That's my drying machine finishing up the cycle, so I'll have to go check the clothes. Now that the dryer is done, I'm probably going to need to put it in for another hour. So again, if you're interested in my conversion It is in my, I think I talked about it in my November 28th video. So go check that out. I talk about all the colors that I use for my conversion. And I've already received people saying they really like it and they're going to do that, but they're going to make a little bit of a change on my conversion where instead of the yellow that I used, the winter, I think it's, yeah, the winter wheat from Color and Cotton, which is this yellow here, they were going to use a gold metallic, which would be great. I just didn't do that. I thought about doing that, but I didn't want a whole lot. I wanted the bling from the metallic to be very purposeful for where it was being in the ornaments and the snowflakes. So now that I'm off from school for the next week, I am really excited about being able to focus on some of my projects that I'm stitching on and just be able to sit down and stitch without having to go to work, run all over the place. Of course, I still have plans and things that I'm going to be doing during that time, but I'm really looking forward to just some days of sleeping in, getting up and stitching, which is exactly what I am doing today. And then I think later tonight I have to wrap some gifts, which is not too thrilling, but such is life at Christmas. And don't forget about the opportunity to join xJuDesigns Fabric of the Month Club. I spoke about it at the end of my review of her fabrics, so go check that out. And if you're really interested and you haven't signed up yet, there's a coupon code in my video, so go check that out to hear about what is being offered from Jukas for her Fabric of the Month Club. Of course, I already explained I will not be joining the Fabric of the Month Club, but that's just because I'm very particular about the fabrics that I buy and choose. And so I definitely heavily support her fabrics, so it's not that I don't want to support, I'm very purposeful in my buying of fabrics versus just getting random pieces in the mail. But if that is your cup of tea, go check that out. I know the sign-ups are going on her Etsy store, and it is customizable to your needs and expectations. So I'm going to finish off this snowflake or whatever this motif is, and I think we're going to end it there today, so because I'm coming to the end of the thread. So happy stitching, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and enjoy your breaks if you get one.